Lily, I just wanted to start by talking about how your character kind of helped us see a different side of Winston Churchill. Could you describe that relationship between him and Elizabeth Layton?
I think it's a beautiful relationship that developed, and it's documented in Elizabeth Layton's book and her experience of working with Churchill through the war. And I think in the film, you really see how her perseverance and dedication and commitment, above all else, really sort of stirred Churchill and moved him and gave him, I think, the courage to know that he was doing the right thing and didn't. I think that Churchill really did rely on those people that were in his inner circle of staff, and he appreciated their sacrifice. So it was, I think in Elizabeth's book she describes how when he got news of victory that they wept together, and at the end of the war he said to her, "Well done, Miss Layton, you've played your part."
And he was a blubberer as well.
Yeah,
I didn't realise
big
that.
crier. Elizabeth says that, while he was coming up with his speeches, he'd be crying with those men on the beaches. He would, and she would be therefore in the presence of this man as he was, for the first time hearing these speeches and committing them to paper that forever have been, will be sort of heard and read,
And quite wonderful what you're saying, that he relied on the people in his inner circle, and your character and also his wife were key players in that. Quite amazing at a time where for a lot of women, they were seen and not heard. There were no women in the House of Commons. There were no women. Segregation in the war rooms.
Yeah.
How significant do you think the role of women were to those kind of significant historical moments?
I think that so important. I feel like they're the unsung heroes. I feel like, at a time, and especially, during the war, women were able to work in ways that they weren't before, so that was already this sort of moment of liberation. But also, down in those war rooms, there was, if you go to the Memorial Museum in London, you watch these recordings of these old women, at the end sort of stages of their life, recounting their times working down in the war rooms, and they weren't allowed to tell their family where they were working, and they'd go down and they'd be there working and constantly just sort of so dedicated. And without them, the sort of the cogs of the war, it wouldn't have run smoothly. It wouldn't have happened. So, and Elizabeth in particular, she travelled with Church. She met Roosevelt. She she was there, and there was a story of when at the White House with the American Guards, and she left at sort of 4:30 in the morning, and he was like, "Gee, our girls don't work as hard as you," and they really did their part.
And what, I'm sure you've been asked this a lot today, but what was it like working with Gary Oldman, so changed, so transformed when he was playing Winston Churchill? It
was like Gary left the building, and I'd hear his voice in between takes coming out of Churchill's body, which was surreal. But he never acts, he just is. And
So he was utterly immersed.
Yeah, I mean, while the cameras were rolling, he was Churchill. Then as an actor, he didn't impersonate, he became. And so therefore, and the first scene we shot was the scene where I first meet Churchill, and I was, really intimidated, and I was really quite, when he's shouting at me, he's really shouting at me. And as an actor, that's the best feeling in the world.
That's incredible. And then, because some of it was shot at Downing Street as well, wasn't it? So to have a historical figure outside this historic building, what did it feel like you were part of history when you were making this film? That might be a bit trite, but
no. I think that you get, as an actor, again, you get these opportunities to sort of see these places that no one else can visit without the red ribbon, and so you are sort of stepping into history. You are sort of getting an opportunity to exist in these spaces, and they created the war rooms at Ealing Studios, and that is like walking into a ghost town. They're left exactly as they were left at the end of the war, and when you open drawers on sets, it had pencils, it had the right things in the drawers, so you really could just exist in these settings.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely to meet you.
You too.